What's up, Degeneration? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by DraftKings. This is the College Football Bowl Betting Preview Part 5. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, my fellow BBOC co-hosts, Collin Wilson, Mike Calabrese, and the one and only Josh Nunn, aka Duck. Today, we have the three other College Football Playoff quarterfinal games: Oregon, Texas Tech, Alabama, Indiana, Ole Miss, Georgia. We'll start with those three. If you missed Part 4, we break down all the bowl games on December 30th and December 31st, including the first college football quarterfinal game between Ohio State and Miami. So make sure you check that out if you haven't. And then we have Rice, Texas State, Navy, Cincy, Arizona, SMU, Wake Forest, Mississippi State. But it's not the end of our bowl betting preview series. We will have part 6, which is we'll break down the college football playoff semifinal games in depth. And then we will have our final episode, sadly, of the season in the not only of bowl previews, but of the entire season. We will cover the national championship, look at some player props, break down the game, side total, etc. And then we will do what we always do at the end of the year: voicemail, caller of the year, gambling Heisman, and just put a bow on the season. Appreciate everyone sticking with us throughout the entire year. Love all you guys. If you have a second, leave a 5-star review if we won you any money this year. Before we do get started, I'll throw to myself for a quick word from our sponsor, DraftKings. The Big Bets on Campus podcast has teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. Stay in on the action and use your bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. To get started, use promo code BBOC when signing up with DraftKings. Again, that's promo code BBOC when signing up, and bet $5 to get 200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The crown is yours. All right, gentlemen, before we get into these games, we had some bowl games this weekend. Man, there's been some bad bowl games. Georgia Southern, App State. Oof, that was ugly. App State probably, I don't know how they didn't cover. They turned it over inside the 20 like 10 times. Duck, I know you had some live that lost on a pick at the goal line after a running into the kicker gave them a redo on a field goal. Sure you
Yeah,
don't want to.
brutal. Just disgusting how that one ended. And honestly, a lot of opportunities for App State to convert drives into points. They continued throwing the ball, even though they were gashing Georgia Southern for nearly 7 yards a carry. And I mean, you throw four interceptions, you're not going to win a game or most oftentimes not even going to cover. So was not meant to be, but that one was brutal with the running into the kicker, the second retry on the field goal, and then they get all the way down to the 3 yard line, can't get it punched in.
Yeah, App State, I had no idea they were going to play that kid a quarterback. He was like a D-back all year. But he could run. He actually looked decent at times. Maybe he's their QB next year. Saturday, though, we had Missouri, ugly. Missouri got Missouri'd by Virginia, who held the ball for nearly 40 minutes and won 13-7. Exciting finish there, but ugly game. Houston comes back from down 14-0 to get it done. BYU, good for you, Colin. You had BYU, I know, but man, that team runs like gods. I had +4 there. They needed like 2 touchdowns, a 2-point conversion, a blocked field goal, a pick in the end zone. Man, that team is lucky.
Let this be a lesson to you for next year. Just step on the dark side with these fraudulent teams like BYU and Virginia. Let it roll and see how it feels. It's kind of like taking a hit on 17 at the blackjack. You know you're not supposed to do it as a book. It's kind of felt pretty good this year.
There's also that kick fumble, like with the guy and his foot came in the air and kicked the fumble. I mean, give me a break. I will say, San Diego State, although I would have won all of the money if that landed 6 or 7. And why did Sean Lewis not kick a field goal with like 30? I know it wouldn't have helped everyone, so I'm happy that it helped everyone. But like, what are you gonna do if you score with no time left? So the clock management was awful. But what a thrilling cover! Stuffed at the one twice, and then sneak it in as basically as time expires to lose by 2. That was an unbelievable game. Bird Emmanuel, by the way, was going to run for 400 yards if he didn't get hurt. Yeah, he had like seven. He had 170 carries midway through, 170 yards midway through the second quarter. But shout out to San Diego State, who never stopped fighting in that game, even with a third string quarterback, Crum, who had to come in. I thought we were toast, but down
Shout out to the four
42-20.
people. Shout out to the four people that were tweeting us in the first quarter saying it was the worst bet of the year. Boy, those tweets got deleted real fast.
Yeah. Narduzzi flops again in a bowl. Pitt took a ton of money. ECU wins outright. Penn State, Clemson. Ugh, I never want to mention that game again. That was one of the ugliest games I've ever watched. And then Army gets it done against the UConn fourth string. Skylar Bell says, I'm playing. I'm going to convince everyone to play. He plays one series and says, peace. Cam Perry did the same for Miami, Ohio, they lost their tackle. They were without a tackle. They had to kick their guards out to tackles. It was a disaster. I felt bad for Snoop Dogg on the CW broadcast, kept wanting things to happen in that game. A very fitting end of the CW broadcast schedule with an 18-3 game.
How many NIL contracts are being rewritten where you have to play more than a series?
Yeah, I mean that frustrates me. Like if you're gonna play, play, or like I'm just gonna show. I'm gonna say I'm gonna play, and you just play one series and get out of here with that stuff. Shout to BYU and Georgia Tech. Most of those guys played. Looking at these, I mean, we have Coastal La Tech, a lot of opt-outs there. USC TCU littered with opt-outs. We broke these games down on part four. Tennessee Illinois littered with opt-outs. Iowa Vandy bowl game of the year. Looks like everyone's going to play except Stowers, the stud tight end, Mackey Award winner. I love Iowa there. Colin, I know you agree with me there.
Yep.
Arizona State Duke littered with opt-outs. Michigan, Texas, love Michigan. Seven or above. I talked about this last podcast. My favorite bet of part four. That number's going to keep it up. Michigan, they're basically the whole team's going to play. Texas has like a JV defense. Nebraska, Utah. I mean, you have the coaching littered with opt-outs. Uh, so then we broke down my Ohio State on part four. Let's get to part five. We'll start with the college football playoff quarterfinals on Thursday, January 1st, starting with the Orange Bowl, which will kick at noon Eastern on ESPN between Oregon and Texas Tech. Oregon is a 2.5 point favorite here. Total is at DraftKings down to 51 and a half. You can still find 52, 52 and a half out there if you search. I'll make Duck. I know that you're on the same page with me. What do you want? Do you want to take the first half under or the game under? What do you want to build a case for? I'll build a case for the other and build off of you.
Well, I mean, I think we can really trust this Texas Tech defense, which has shown up nasty week after week after week to just be present and do the right things like they have all year. 39 sacks, 96 tackles from behind the line of scrimmage, first nationally in yards per rush given up, third in overall defensive success rate. These guys do not allow methodical drives. They don't allow a ton of explosivity. Nothing easy in the red zone either. 18 red zone scores, but only 13 touchdowns given up all season in the red zone. I would also expect Oregon's defense to show up in this one as well. These guys have been feisty all season, and they've played really well in big games. Think of the Penn State game, which was a major under trend before hitting the multiple overtimes. Iowa, Washington, honestly, even Indiana just had three explosive plays on these guys. So I would anticipate both defenses can handle the speed well from the opposing offenses. I think we'll see sound assignment football played here. Both these two teams should be really well prepared for this one. If you look at Oregon in the red zone offensively, a little bit left to be desired here. 46 scores out of 53 red zone trips, but only 36 touchdowns. It's far from elite. They've been very good, but not necessarily elite. And now you got to line up against this Texas Tech defense to try to get into the red zone. And then once you do, they make it just absolute hell on you. So could see some field goals kicked in this one, which would keep the scoring a little bit low. I think we're good either way. I like the first half under. I like the full game under. 52 and a half key number, 51 and a half still okay. But yeah,
And then
I
yeah,
think this one's a slow.
above 24 in the first half. Obviously,
Yeah.
was what you want to hunt there, which is out there now. Um, I agree with you. I I will be on both. I've already hit the full game under. We'll be adding first half under here. I mean, I do trust the Texas Tech defense. The one question I have is like their corners. They haven't really faced any like many elite receivers in Big 12 play. Like they faced Jordan Tyson, who had like he went off. I think he had 10 catches for 100 yards. But I mean, I trust this defense. They can get pressure. Their third down defense is excellent. Their linebackers, their defensive line is like a top three team in the country defensive line. I mean, this is not your typical Big 12 defense.
The best money can
And
buy.
yes, the best that money can buy. And I mean, the one thing that I don't like about it is that, Texas Tech does play with tempo. However, I'm not sure that they're going to play. Maybe they'd slow it down a bit here, right? Especially early on, trying to feel out this game. So I could see them playing a little bit slower. You want to run on Oregon, but the Texas Tech rushing offense isn't great on a down the down basis, especially. And Morton's not 100%. I mean, he said he was at 70% for the BYU game. He said he's at like 80, 85% now. So he's at not at 100%. And it's not a true air raid offense, but it has air raid principles, which are based on timing. And we've seen these leech offenses in the past. Whenever there's a long break, they usually have a rough start, right? And it's out of rhythm and they're out of timing. And this is the first, I mean, Texas Tech hasn't faced a top 10 offense, excuse me, a top 10 defense all year. You could argue that BYU and Utah are borderline, but even in those games, let's see. The score at the half against you, they played Utah and BYU three times combined. 10-3, 13-0, 13-7. Those are also the best offenses they faced, and they completely shut down BYU both times and Utah. So, yeah, I think, and this Oregon offense, look, everyone's going to be like, oh, look what they did to JMU. But when they played like real P4 elite defenses, it looked pretty pedestrian. I mean, look at what Penn State did to them, what Indiana did to them, Iowa. So they didn't score more than 10 points in any of those first halves, even against Wisconsin, who had a really good defense. I know there was some weather mixed in there, but uh, yeah, I think this is an under type of game, so I'm going low as well. Calabrese, you're on board.
Oh, I'm 100% on board. I mean, you guys basically covered every stat, but I'd like to also throw in when it comes to the Texas Tech offense finishing drives, 97th in touchdown rate in the red zone. And that's really the only big, mark against this Oregon defense. They haven't been great at preventing touchdowns once teams get inside of their 20. But I think that's the difference here between this game even flirting with the over. It's the fact that they've really struggled. And when you have a sample size as big as an entire year, they never truly got it figured out. And in a lot of cases, they weren't playing against great defenses in the Big 12. The other
But the
piece
run
after
game's not
half,
great, and then it's like an air raid type offense, which they tend to struggle in red zone.
yeah, no, absolutely. And if you want to get in on a live under as well, consider this. Texas Tech's defensive coordinator, Sheil Wood, has made countless adjustments at halftime, and the Red Raiders have shut teams down in the second half, just allowing 6.6 points per game in the final 30 minutes, which was sixth best in FBS football this year. Red Raiders, I mean, I understand that it was a limited sample size. You mentioned those games against the teams from the state of Utah. Those were the three matchups against top 25 offenses. They held those opponents to 8 points per game. So really, I think this is kind of the recency bias of Oregon getting whatever they wanted against James Madison. People are higher on Dante Moore. I think a lot of casual money comes in during the college football playoff. They look at mock drafts. Oh, Dante Moore is going in the top 10. Against good defenses, I thought he was just a jag, just another guy. So I think that's going to be the situation here against Texas Tech. I think this is going to be a rock fight. I think there's going to be some nerves as well on the Texas Tech side early in the first quarter. So any kind of way that you want to build some unders, first quarter, first half, full game, I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, Colin, you like a side here. You're rolling with the
Yeah.
Ducks.
I'm gonna roll with Oregon. I think if you can get a money line minus 130, minus 135, that's as high as I would go. You're not going to see me put it into the app because I already have an 18 to 1 future on Oregon, and I'm just going to let it roll through this game without any kind of hedge whatsoever. You're going to get a more and to back you guys up with what you're saying, you're going to get a more spirited effort out of the Oregon defense, and the reason is because Tosh Lapoy came out and changed the structure of the defense and wanted it to resemble what Ohio State did last year in the playoff. Presumably, they needed a roamer like Caleb Downs was last year, and they picked Dylan Thieneman to be that last. Well, it was terrible against James Madison. 28 points were allowed in the second half. Tosh Lapoy comes out and says, I'm kind of happy with those results because it should have us fired up for the quarterfinal. I expect much better against the Texas Tech offense when we get to the quarterfinals. He had no problems with how sloppy the defense was against James Madison. terrible in red zone D. I mean, I think the big narrative around Oregon is that they're not good in red zone D and they're not good in defensive finishing drives. But there's only been 30 attempts this year against that defense in the red zone, and that is the ninth lowest rate. So it's really hard to say that Oregon's terrible in the red zone. There just really hasn't been a lot of data points. They've allowed 21 of 30 scores. So we'll see how that works out. But there's just a lot of little things that point to Oregon winning this game. There's special teams, there's penalties. There's all kinds of things that fall in favor of Oregon here, but more importantly, I just don't like the Texas Tech offensive line that's required Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams to create all the highlight yards this year. They are terrible in line yards, 96, which means their running backs have to do all of the work.
And that's how you kind of want to attack Oregon, I think. Like the best way is you want to have a good offensive line that can get a push and run on them.
Yeah, yeah. And the other problem with them is not just the fact that the offensive line has not been able to control trenches at all this year, but it's also the fact that Texas Tech has stunk in the red zone. And Joey McGuire called for it at the end of the season, the Big 12 play. And all of a sudden they scored on like every red zone attempt through their final two games. But what happened against BYU in the Big 12 championship game? 5 trips to the red zone and 1 touchdown. Like if they play decent enough competition. I mean, BYU had a decent defense, not like Oregon. They just haven't been able to score in the red zone whatsoever. So, Oregon only allows 2.3 red zone trips per game. Texas Tech's outside the top 25 in creating methodical drives. You're not going to have explosives. You're not going to create methodicals. I don't see a way that Texas Tech is going to put up a whole lot of points here. And then, like I said, you get to what Oregon wants to do best, which is get to their guys. And as we're recording this, we're 30 minutes away from the availability report coming out, so we'll see where Decory Moore is. But you know, I think what Oregon wants to do on offense is just go short, get away from that defensive line, go to the flats, hit them in the flares, slants, avoid the defensive line at all costs, and kind of dance out in space because that's where you can take advantage of a Texas Tech defense. Is 32nd in broken tackles and broken tackles allowed. That number is different for Oregon. They're top 5 in the nation. So I don't expect these highlight yards that we're getting out of Williams and Dickey to happen against Oregon, as to where I think some of Oregon's playmakers are going to be able to create space in space. What am I trying to say? Create explosives in space. And that to me is the biggest thing. But anyways, yeah, tackling, middle eight, penalties, special teams from a data standpoint, they all fall on the Oregon side. It's kind of like death by 1,000 little paper cuts here that I think Oregon beats Texas Tech.
Yeah, and going back to the under, I do think that the Texas Tech defense, the pace of Texas Tech is usually fast, but big games you could see that decrease a little bit. But Oregon's not fast, so that when they have the ball and they're like more methodical, slower, that'll help. But if you haven't watched Texas Tech play and you're not familiar with, Lee Hunter and Bailey, these guys can get after the quarterback. I think they'll have some negative plays on third downs to kill drives, which will help the under. All right, let's move on to the second college football playoff quarterfinal game between Alabama and Indiana. Indiana out to 7-ish point favorite. Been moving around a bit over the past week. Total 48.5. This is the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Game will kick at 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Big news here, rain. Could be lots of rain. We could even see some like lightning and thunder. We could have delays. The Rose Bowl, that's very rare, especially for this time of the year. My numbers say this is Indiana all the way. I mean, I think that this line should be similar to where Ohio State and Miami is. But I think the name recognition of Alabama. I mean, Alabama, I think Alabama is maybe a fringe top 10 team. I mean, look at their body of work. They get lucky again against Oklahoma. They're lucky against Auburn, lucky against South Carolina. I mean, I could go on and on. This team can't run the ball. I think their defense is a tad overrated. There's many holes in this team. Indiana has been the number 2 power rated team for most of the year. Them or Notre Dame behind Ohio State. This is a complete team with an elite staff that I think will have an elite game plan here. The loss of Daly is like the Indiana that what you really worry about is like the depth that they're high in positions. What is that worth? But Evans, it looks like he's a full go at receiver. That's big. So my numbers call for Indiana here. I will be on the Hoosiers in some fashion. And don't forget, Alabama got extremely lucky against Oklahoma, even though they were a huge mismatch on special teams. Alabama's special teams are bad as well. You just can't be this one-dimensional team, I think, against Indiana, who has extra time to prepare and expect to have success. So, yeah, I mean, Alabama, look, they have a lot of talent. Maybe you can hit some pass explosives, and uh, Indiana's not used to being in this role like a big favorite in the college football playoff. But I think this team is different. I think the Hoosiers get it done. Colin, you agree? You like Indiana as well?
Yeah, probably my most comfortable bet I think I've made so far is Indiana to cover the number here. I don't think the number is outrageous. It's just that Alabama's one-dimensional. You're going to take a one-dimensional team and go in and try to face Cignetti. I mean, he can shut you down in multiple different ways, and you're taking one certain area in your offense to try and go and beat Kurt Cignetti. Good luck. Oklahoma stuffed 17 of 21 Alabama rushing attempts. That's not going to get it done against Indiana. And then you look at who they're going to, like Ryan Williams, just phantom. He's gone, right? Jeremy Bernard can't get anything behind the line of scrimmage. Don't expect him to get it here. Latsier Brooks steps up in the absence of these two guys. Doesn't have a touchdown reception the entire season, gets two against Oklahoma. And then all of a sudden, the Alabama pass rush is showing up against Oklahoma. 127th on the season per PFF, and then they're showing up for 15 pressures and 7 sacks on John Mateer.
I
I
mean,
don't
but
know.
Oklahoma has a pitiful offensive line. Indiana has an elite offensive line, so I don't expect to see much pressure here.
And I would expect people showing up to the window are, just browsing that game and thinking Alabama's defense is back. I don't think so.
No.
And then when you get to the run concepts like Indiana, like we've talked about this before, right? It's Roman Hemby doing inside zone. It's Kalen Black doing man gap blocking schemes up on the offensive line. What can Alabama not defend? They can't defend the zone read at all. And then
And Mendoza's underrated mobility. Don't
and,
sleep on
and
his legs here.
but the problem with that is that Indiana's number one in the nation in standard downs. Like you just can't knock them off schedule. And I don't see Alabama knocking them off schedule. I'm not even sure if Mendoza is going to be a big part of this game because of all this weather that's coming in, this massive rain that's coming in that's got me buying like a whole bunch of track suits and wetsuits for California trip. I don't see any way that Alabama is able to keep up with Roman Hemby and Kalen Black getting to the second level. More importantly, because Alabama is 113th in broken tackles allowed. So it was a good performance against Oklahoma. They should be commended that that passing offense through Ty Simpson armed was, I mean, despite all the pressures that he had, he was still able to complete passes and get enough points up on the board to win that game. But I mean, there's just no way. I mean, by the way, Mendoza dominates cover three and cover two, which is what Womack ran primarily against Oklahoma. So, I mean, this is number one havoc-minded defense in the nation with the Hoosiers, and you're going to give them a slop fest of a field and rain with a rushing attack against Alabama team that can't run the ball. This is probably my most comfortable bet that I've got of all the
Yeah,
quarterfinals.
I mean, when I look at this, I have, an elite staff with extra time to prepare, but just on the field, you have two really good passing offenses, right? Two really good quarterbacks with really good receivers. But one of these teams has a rushing attack, one doesn't. On the
Mhm.
other side of the ball, one of these teams has a pass rush, one doesn't. The
One
one
has a
that
great place
doesn't in both
kicker,
is Alabama.
one doesn't.
Yeah, special teams advantage Indiana. So yeah, I think you add up all that up, and I think Indiana's the play, especially I wouldn't play over 7, but at 7 or below, I think the Hoosiers are the play. And Calabrese, you agree?
Yeah, I'm on the Hoosiers here for much of the week. They were laying 6.5, and the last time the number one team in the country played a team ranked ninth or lower, or if further back in the AP rankings in a bowl game, and they were favored by less than a touchdown, it was the Sugar Bowl in 1962. That's how long it's been, and I really think that it's just a laundry game. I think if you flipped, who was wearing the Alabama, numbers on their helmet and the crimson and flipping it over, this would be closer to 10. I think this is just the public refusing to budge on Indiana and giving them their flowers. And by the way, who played in 1962? Spoiler alert for you, Colin. It was Alabama against Arkansas. Alabama did cover that game. They won 10-3 over Frank Broyles. It was Bear Bryant's first national championship. I think Cignetti's the next superstar coach in this sport. I think people are just slow to adapt to it. And when you dig into this matchup, all of the stats, everything just points to the consistency of being elite, being on the Indiana side, and Alabama. Listen, I get to admit this because I had Bama against Oklahoma. There's no way they should have won that game. They're down 17-0. Everything that could go wrong, any way for Oklahoma to give that game away, they did. And when you dig into some of the pass rush stats as well, Ty Simpson has been under fire, and it wasn't just that game. His last 3 games, he's taken 10 sacks. He's been pressured on 41% of his dropbacks. I think that'll be the difference here on a soggy field where, maybe scrambling isn't quite as easy and people are just coming after this guy. It's going to put so much pressure on him to play hero ball and to be making these incredible throws in rough conditions where Indiana can be multiple. They can be balanced. I just don't quite understand why this number hasn't moved. I know it's inching up at 7.5, somewhere in the market. I think it's going to close closer to 8.5. I think it should have been closer to 10 this entire week. I think Indiana, this is purely a brand mismatch in terms of what the public is used to going to the window betting on. This Alabama team, if they had been left out of the playoff altogether, I don't think that would have been some shame because the fact of the matter is they are not elite in so many ways. I really even look at the running game. Getting Jam Miller back, I thought that was going to be a bigger deal against Oklahoma. It wasn't. I mean, for 15 straight years from Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, they had game breakers all over the place. Josh Jacobs, they're 110th in terms of being able to get rushing explosives going. So I just look at this as Alabama, once they get down by a possession or two in this game, and it's all Ty Simpson, I think the roof is going to cave in on Bama. So I may even flirt with an alternate line or two. I think Indiana, this is a showcase game for them.
Yeah, it's 2025. Well, this game will be in 2026. It's 2026. You bet Alabama against Indiana in basketball, not football nowadays. Duck, you're passing here. Do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, it will be a fun game, and trying to figure out Alabama has been a season-long puzzle. You've got so many disparaging losses and poor performances. Florida State, they were embarrassed by Georgia in the SEC title game, could have lost to Auburn. And then they've got
Should
several
have
top
lost to
10
South
wins.
Carolina.
Very easily could have, yeah. The problem for Alabama is they can't run the football. 125th nationally in yards per rush. 10 times this year, the rushing output has been 120 yards or less. And now you're going to task a lot of Ty Simpson squaring up against a secondary that's only allowed 7 touchdown passes this entire season against 17 interceptions for the Hoosiers. But you look at IU, and they've done it in the trenches defensively as well. 39 sacks, 114 tackles for loss, just 11 points per game given up. Just an incredibly buttoned up defensive unit. I look at Indiana offensively, they don't make mistakes. 7 yards per play over the course of an entire season, third in yards per pass, second in overall offensive success rate. These guys do protect well. They are, Colin said it, they're not behind the sticks hardly at all, and they're on schedule. And it's just going to be tricky when Alabama is going to be unable to run the ball in the second half, and you're just going to task Simpson with having to do it. The rain is going to play a big factor here. So, yeah, I have no interest in fading Signetti. I'll likely get to the window here with Indiana.
And Duck,
Yeah,
just
I
real
think the
quick
rain
too.
favors Indiana too. But
Yeah. It is the final piece here, Stuck, you brought up the receiving core for Alabama. If everything's going right, that's obviously a strength with Simpson throwing to them. You look at the Oregon game, they held him below 200 yards, and that's with Decorian Moore in the lineup. And then Ohio State, they held him, 27 points below their season scoring average. And that receiving core is absolutely elite with one
and that
guy
was
you
with
have to
everyone
focus.
playing.
Yes. So I'm just looking at
On a
this
fast track.
as
On a fast track.
on a
Right?
fast track. Yeah. So I don't have any concerns with, this being a situation where they're outclassed in any way, shape, or form on the perimeter. I think really it's just going to be Ty Simpson getting his brain speed in the pocket in this one.
All right, so pretty much consensus on the Hoosiers. Enjoy that game, Colin. When you headed out there?
Tomorrow, flying out tomorrow. Gonna do a Cosm. For those of you that have ever heard of that, Cosm's in Dallas and LA. It's like this full dome experience, and I'm gonna go there for Miami of Ohio State, of course, rooting for Miami against Ohio State. But it's like the Sphere in Vegas. So if you guys haven't seen Cosm before, I'm gonna spend the playoff game out there in LA.
Well, enjoy. Let's move on to the final College Football Playoff quarterfinal game on Thursday, January 1st. By the way, happy early New Year to everyone listening and to you guys as well. It's a rematch, Ole Miss and Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Georgia is there's some Ole Miss money that showed up. What are we, let's see where we're at right now. Just
Six and a half.
a touch. Okay, we're at 6.5 still. Total 55.5. Rematch from a game where Ole Miss jumped out to an early lead. Georgia stormed back, dominated the fourth quarter. Pretty much the story of Georgia this year for large stretches. I don't need to spend much time on this game. You guys know what I'm doing. I'm waiting for Georgia live. So I think that Ole Miss potentially, this is like, hey, house money. They're going to have some new wrinkles early, right? They're going to maybe see some trick plays. I think that they could have the edge early on in this game in the scripted portion. Don't generally love Georgia in that aspect. By the way, Georgia might get Colby Young back here at wide receiver, who got hurt in the Ole Miss game the first time they met. So Georgia Live, they go down. I'll be jumping in there. I've talked about it all year. I had nauseum. I don't need to go into much more than that. Uh, where do we want to start here? We have kind of consensus with Breeze and Colin. Breeze, I'll let you start. You like the full game over 55.5?
I do. First meeting, 78 points. Ole Miss was on fire offensively. Georgia figured them out in the fourth quarter, but this is more a Stockton play to me because I think this can be a showcase game for him. 3,000 total yards, 31 total touchdowns. He clearly showed against the top teams that he played this year that he was more than a game manager. I think that was kind of misguided from the get-go in terms of profiling him. Against Ole Miss, Texas, Alabama, 11 passing touchdowns, two more rushing scores. And I bring this up because I just think this is such a bad matchup for the Ole Miss defense. Because if you can run on the Rebs, which Georgia can with their offensive line, then you can be balanced and you can sit in the pocket all day against a non-existent pass rush and pick them apart. And it's extra important in this game because if you can't get to him with four, you have no choice but to blitz Stockton. The problem is he has the highest adjusted completion percentage in the entire country, 86% when facing five blitzers or more, 17 passing touchdowns, just one interception. On the other side of things, like I said, the Ole Miss offense had everything rolling for them, and I'm a big believer in Trinidad Chambliss. They get scored 35 points in 40 minutes on this Georgia defense, so I've already seen it. And that was all without Lacey even having a game. He had, 12 carries for about 30 yards in that one. I expect more of him in this one, a lot of RPO stuff, maybe some, trick plays. And Stuck, rightly so, you brought up without Lane Kiffin on the headset, how aggressive were they going to be? Now, Tulane, obviously, they were playing with house money. They knew they were going to win that game. They still went for it twice on fourth down. They went up for a fourth down in midfield earlier in that game. So I think they're going to continue to be aggressive. It's a part of their identity. I think that could
Golding had
only
some
help.
quotes like, "Yeah, I'm a defensive guy, but I'm actually aggressive." So I think that, and then now in the underdog role, I think that they'll be aggressive on fourth downs here.
It's probably going to take, I don't know, 24, 28 points from Ole Miss at minimum. I think with Chambliss, that's always a possibility to get there, particularly if they're playing far from behind in the fourth quarter and Georgia doesn't want to put anything exotic on tape, just kind of plays vanilla coverage. 55.5 is fine. I'd play this up to 58.
Yeah, I would say with a big game rematch, maybe some more under money show. Well, I would watch the because 55 is such a key. Like, just monitor to see where that's going to see if you can ever get a 55. Always shop around as always. Colin, you're kind of on the same page, but you're looking just on the Georgia side of things. You like their team total
At,
over?
at some point, Ole Miss is going to run out of gas, and at some point, Georgia's going to find their next gear. And when you look at that game script from week 8, it was 5 straight possessions to start the game for Ole Miss with a touchdown. Then they got beaten to a pulp in the fourth quarter, lost 17-0, and didn't do anything at the end of the game. That was with Lane Kiffin making adjustments. Well, he's not there to make adjustments, and I'm not sure Charlie Weiss Jr. could get him to 5 possessions and 5 touchdowns, maybe 2 or 3 in a row to start the game. And I don't have a lot of faith in Pete Goulding being this defensive mastermind to be able to stop Georgia a second time around. So at some point, I think Georgia just starts piling on and piling on and piling on. And I don't think I think this is going to be a different story than what it was. But I'm going to stick on the offensive side just because the numbers have been so bad for defensively versus what Georgia does on the ground, like Calabrese said. This season, Ole Miss has just completely struggled in so many ways of defending certain types of run concepts, specifically what Georgia does. But more importantly, like Georgia is insanely good in the red zone, specifically on the ground. Their Gunnar Stockton, Nate Frazier combination, the inside zone they run with 11 and 12 personnel is just not going to get shut down against Ole Miss. 58% success rate, no matter how you slice it, light box, heavy box. Georgia's been unstoppable. Of 40 red zone attempts, 35 of them have been touchdowns. 5 have been field goals. That Ole Miss defense is going to struggle. And you know what? If Trinidad and Kewan want to put quick scores up on the board, if they want to come out and run trick plays, that's fine. Give the ball back to Georgia because I'm going to take a team total over. I don't think Kirby stops here. And I'm really kind of sitting back watching this Georgia defense. I mean, has anybody scored over 10 points on them in like 6 weeks? Oh, by the way, all of a sudden now they're sacking better than anybody in the nation. Like, I want need a thermometer here. How do I need to wipe away all these Georgia year-long stats, put it down, say they don't have a pass rush, is what we've said all year, but all of a sudden they do. I think Alabama's was an anomaly because Oklahoma's offensive line was terrible. I think Georgia might actually legitimately be completely changed, which is why I think they should be the national title favorites right now. But I want to take the temperature of the defense. At the same time, I think this rush offense is not going to be stopped. I think Kirby piles it on offensively. So over 30 and a half team total.
That I will say also, because I kind of wanted to bet Georgia here, but I'm pretty close to the number. Georgia does, for my money, as the best special teams, overall special teams in the country, too. It's worth noting. I just can't get the Georgia Tech game out of my head because I don't know what happened. How did they just not score and they weren't able to do anything? I've seen some theories like Georgia Tech knew the plays and like knew what was coming, which makes sense when I was watching it. But I like everyone scores on Georgia Tech and moves the ball, and they couldn't. This was just like a couple weeks ago. They couldn't. That game, I think about that at night. Like what happened there? I didn't think there was any possibility where the Georgia Tech defense shut down Georgia's offense on a fast track. So
It's
I,
always a bad spot, though. It's
I mean,
always a
but they
bad
they still
spot.
score. They don't like it wasn't that game. Georgia Tech's defense is awful. Uh anyway, Duck, not no play here, but you wouldn't be shocked if America's team Ole Miss hangs around.
Well, we'll see. I mean, nothing really would surprise me here. It's hard to beat a team twice, and Ole Miss did have them on the ropes in the first meeting. But you know what? You got the dogs that have the rest advantage. I'm sure Kirby and his defensive bunch will be prepared and locked in for what these guys are going to see, having seen it once before. And
And getting
Colin
to
had
see like what
mentioned
this new some of the step what this new staff did against Tulane, right?
a lot of that with the film advantage. Ole Miss had to play a game with that, and Georgia has that to prepare. And I mean, Georgia's peaking at the right time. Their last four opponents have been held to 10 points or less. And the question would be the season long question is, will the Dogs be able to rattle Trinidad Chambliss and get him off of his mark, get pressure on him? The season long stats are not great, but the last 4 or 5 weeks, it has really ramped up for Georgia defensively. Third down red zone over the last month, it has been nasty for Georgia defensively. So I think about where is this game going to be in the middle of the third quarter when the rubber meets the road and Georgia's leaning on Ole Miss's defensive line. Can Ole Miss match them score for score? Because I don't know necessarily that Ole Miss is going to secure a ton of stops in the second half. So the real question is, are they going to have built a first half lead in order to sustain the and weather the storm? Because if not, this could be you might be looking at a fourth quarter similar to what we saw in the last matchup where Georgia pulls away and wins and ends up covering the number, and that's all she wrote for Ole Miss.
If
By the way,
Austin Simmons comes in, by the way, immediately bet an alternate number if Chambliss is out. And also, if you can bet turnover on a drive, Jesus Christ, that guy is a walking turnover. And he's with a real pass rush. Tulane was able to turn him over immediately. Like Georgia's going to eat him for lunch. So just
Big
something to
time
keep in your
trouble.
back pocket. If Chambliss goes out with a head injury or something like that, you got to hammer a number against, the Rebs.
Georgia, yeah, she'll be able to run the ball. I mean, Tulane was having some success moving the ball on the ground with McClure. That Ole Miss defense on the ground can be had, and I think that ultimately might be the difference, in
And
addition
and
to
by
some
the
Kirby adjustments.
and by the way, the two best defenses in broken tackles allowed are Georgia and Indiana. Both are top five in the nation that are left in the playoff. I mean, the big reason why when we did our brackets, I said these are the two teams because Ole Miss could not create in space. Creative, made adjustments. It was a chess match, finally gave up, and Georgia didn't miss a tackle. They only missed eight. Eight tackles, like that is fantastic against Ole Miss. That's what happened in week 8. I expect that to happen again. A sub 10 missed tackle rate.
Yeah, looking forward to this one. Looking forward to all three games on New Year's Day. By the way, before we move on, we all have that friend or family member who doesn't bother with college football until the playoffs. Maybe they aren't as big of fans as we and all of you are, and that's okay. But now that these big matchups are coming, they might be wondering how they can enjoy all the action. If you've tuned in to any of our bowl preview episodes, you know the best way to not miss a single moment of the college football playoffs is with Sling TV. So tell those folks that Sling TV has them covered. With Sling TV, you can take full control with flexible package options of 1, 3, and 7-day passes for access to 30 plus live channels, which includes ESPN and TNT. So you're covered for the Orange Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, and more. So tell that friend or family member about Sling TV, and let's put together an all-day parlay from these upcoming 3 college football playoff quarterfinal games on Thursday. I will start. Duck, I'll let you take full game. I'm going to go with the Oregon Texas Tech first half under. You're going to throw in the full game?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about Texas Tech. We talked a little bit about it during the preview, but their red zone offense has left a lot to be desired. 23 red zone field goals settled for, and 32 times this season, Texas Tech has entered the red zone and did not score a touchdown. So they could have to settle for field goals here against this Oregon red zone defense. I definitely think that Texas Tech's defense is showing up for this one. They'll be ready to go. They're not going to give up a ton of explosive plays. They're going to be able to create some pressure. I think third down and have to get off the field situations, we'll see them force punts. I just think this ends up being a slow burning grinder and won't see it approach the total. So, yeah, I'll take full game under.
Breeze, you're going to roll with the Hoosiers?
Smoke them if you got them. Team Signetti on this one. I'm going to back them. Lay in 6.5, 7, 7.5. All those numbers are good.
Colin?
Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely going Georgia team total over. When you have 40 red zone trips and only 5 field goals, that gives me confidence I'm going to get the points I need to get a team total over.
All right, that pays somewhere around plus 730, plus 740 at DraftKings. Oregon, Texas Tech, first half and full game under. Georgia team total over, and lay the 7 with Indiana. With so many great games in the coming days, Sling TV is your solution to instant access to live TV starting as low as $4.99. There isn't a better time to acquaint yourself with 1, 3, and 7-day passes from Sling TV. Offer applies to Orange one-day pass. Restrictions apply. Make sure you check out Sling TV. All right, let's get to the 4 other bowl games on January 2nd. Rice, Texas State in the Armed Forces Bowl, Friday, January 2nd, 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Texas State's out to a 14.5 point favorite, total 57.5. I mean, it's getting bad when the Rice quarterback is opting out. So Jenkins is not going to play, and you've seen the number.
This is a game that Rice was like tapped, asked if they want to play, and then their quarterback opts out.
Unbelievable. So the problem for Rice is, so I think Patrick Creighton will probably start at quarterback. They run like an option-esque type of offense. One of their leading receivers is in the transfer portal. One of their backs, they had a corner kicked off the team. The same guy for Michigan State who hit someone with a helmet in the Michigan game. He transferred to Rice. Now he's kicked off the team. Texas State, pretty clean. The biggest concern I have here, Rice gives up a ton of explosives, and Texas State's offense is a walking explosive. So this could get ugly quick with Rice having their backup quarterback. And I mean, the Texas State defense is so bad. So, like, do I really want to run to lay 14.5? Maybe. If Texas State cares here and is locked in, they could put up a big number. I mean, Texas State was one of the most unluckiest teams, one of the most unlucky teams in the country this year. I mean, they lost countless games in overtime by 3, blown leads. They were really one of the better Sun Belt teams. Duck, you're going to lay it here with the Bobs?
Yeah, I am. And you look at Rice down to a third string quarterback, Chase Jenkins, and also Drew Devier not going to go after entering the portal. I look at Texas State. They were really able to rally the troops and win their last 3 to get into a bowl game. Rice backs their way in after several teams choose to opt out. So you got a 5-7 team that didn't really expect to be there. I think this is a bad matchup for Rice. Outside of the fact that these guys surrendered 50 points back to back in their last two games of the season, they were not good away from home and they give up so much explosiveness.
So
Texas
many.
State can score 2-3 play drives, should be a lot of firepower from the Bobs here. And it's really hard to imagine Rice being able to play keep away for too long here. You see the game plan play out for Rice week after week after week, where they want to outpossess, they want to run the ball 3.5, 4 yards per carry at a time. They don't want to throw it, and then they get down a couple scores, and
And
that
then it's
game plan
over.
kind of gets scrapped. Yeah, and then you see quick 3-and-outs. And we saw it against Memphis. We saw it against USF. We just saw it time and time and time again. Even North Texas, when they got out to that big lead and they couldn't sustain drives, you're doing 3, 4 play drives and you're punting right back to them on short fields. I don't think Rice in the secondary will be able to cover these receivers here. The Owls were 135th nationally in allowing explosive plays and really, really bad against the pass here. Rice, the only team in the country that did not force a red zone stop this season. 37 attempts, 37 scores against them, with 28 of those
Wow.
being touchdowns. Doesn't even factor the explosive drives where they never had to snap the ball in the red zone. I look at the This is the last thing I'll say. I look at the Rice defensive front. They had 22 sacks this season, but 14 of those sacks came in the first 3 weeks. And then they had five more against UAB. These guys went long stretches of the season where they could not get pressure. They're not going to get pressure here against Brad Jackson, a very underrated dual threat quarterback. 18 passing touchdowns, 16 rushing touchdowns. We saw this bowl game play out in 2023, 45-21. I think it'll be a similar song and dance here. I'm laying it with the Bobs.
Breeze, you're on board. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, this quarterback, Patrick Creighton Jr., he played 34 plays this year for Rice. He accounted for 3 passing yards and negative 22 rushing yards. Maybe he'll have himself a college career, get some seasoning, be put in the right position, but that's impressive to be on the field and have negative yardage with that many plays. And Texas State, their calling card in past seasons where they give up explosive plays, but they create negative plays. And for much of the season, they couldn't. But they finally got that figured out in that late, winning streak to get to bowl eligibility. 21 tackles for loss in their final 3 games. And you mentioned it, the bad luck, going 6-6, but 3 losses by 3 points or less, and another one in overtime. And they had some of the worst fumble luck. They only recovered 1 fumble the entire season against this Rice team that I don't think they're going to be able to move the football in this one. I think if they get any good fortune, either +1 in the turnover game or even better, Texas State's going to win this one by 24, 28 points. I think this is going to be a runaway against a Rice defense that is just horrific.
Colin, you also like Texas State to put up a big number here. You like the team total over?
Yeah, it hasn't been released yet. I expect 34.5, 35.5. I don't care. I mean, Rice is coming off 2 losses where North Texas and South Florida combined for 108 points. And then you elected to go to a bowl game against the Texas State offense. It's 12th in rush EPA. Lincoln Pear, 111 TDs, and then Brad Jackson, quarterback, 16 TDs on the ground, 34th in pass EPA. Rice is near dead last defensively against the rush explosives. They're 113th in defending pass explosives. Like what are we doing here, Owls? Like, why are we in a bowl? I mean, you are next to last in passing downs EPA allowed. This is gross. I mean, this is 50 burger. I don't know. There's all kinds of ways to play this, but I'm looking for a team total over on the Bobs.
And Colin, I think it's worth noting for the audience too, like if you have a really bad pass rush, at least you have the option to blitz a little bit and, to get burned potentially, but also create negative plays. If you can't stop the run, if your run fits are a mess, there's no like run blitz, just like send 10 guys. It's like they're just going to make one guy miss and take it to the house. So there's no easy fix other than spending the offseason in the portal, working on fundamentals, maybe getting a new DC. Like it's a long-term problem when you can't stop the run.
Very much.
All right, let's move on to the Liberty Bowl. Friday, January 2nd, 3:30 Eastern on ESPN between Navy and Cincinnati. Navy 7-point favorite, total 54.5. The news here, it's all, I mean, Navy, Service Academy, Death Taxes, Service Academy. You know they're going to show up. There's not going to be any opt-outs. I mean, maybe Landon Robinson doesn't play. Their stud defensive tackle, but I would expect him to go. Cincy, meanwhile, their entire secondary, besides McDoom, is pretty much out. And their secondary was terrible this year, but like they have nobody. And that's because their cornerback coach has gone to Arkansas. Arkansas says, "Whoa, look at this bad Cincy secondary all year. We might as well get their cornerback coach, I guess." And So they're going to be extremely short-handed. Dante Corleone, their best defensive tackle, stud in the middle. He's not going to play. He's gone to the NFL. Jake Golday, their stud linebacker, he's going to go to the NFL. He's on the depth chart, but I wouldn't be shocked if he also opts out. The main news is Sorsby's out. Their stud quarterback. So it's going to be, I think, a combination of Brady Lichtenberg, who has a senior who has 333 career passing yards, and freshman Samaj Jones, who has 2 pass attempts this year. The rest of the offense, it does look like is going to suit up, including tight end Joe Royer, their offensive line, which I think most of which will return next year. But without Sorsby and this bad defense, and it's a Service Academy, is there much more to say? I mean, the Service Academy's on a 19-3 against the spread run in bowl games.
73% against the spread since 2003 in bowl games.
Yep.
Incredible.
72 and a half, I think 72% since 1990. So, I mean, we say it every year. We don't have to go break it down too far. I mean, Service Academy to bowl. I like Navy. Breeze, you agree?
Yep, I agree. I mean, the only time they were outclassed was against Notre Dame, consensusly top, power rated, top 5 in the whole country. And then their loss against North Texas, -3 in the turnover battle. They also had a pick in the end zone, a turnover on downs in
Could
North
easily
Texas.
won that game.
Yeah, so every other game, I mean, they beat Memphis, they beat South Florida, they beat Army. Like these are all good wins down the stretch. They're playing great football. And Cincinnati, I mean, they're not. I don't think they're going to get off the bus without probably their 5 best players at this point for a team that absolutely faded. At one point, they were what 5-0 in Big 12 play. They were certainly dreaming of the conference championship game, and then to just pee down their leg in the month of November, I don't think they're going to be all that motivated to have to play their most disciplined game of the entire season defensively against this millennial wing T. I think it's a disaster for the Bearcats.
This is when you could have really used Corleone too. Like he would have been
Yes,
massive.
game wrecker
Also,
in the middle. Yeah.
yeah. Also, their starting defensive end Coleman, he also hit the portal. So they're going to be very depleted. Duck, is it as simple as Service Academy to bowl?
Well, I mean, there's a little bit more to it, and your great bowl participation tracker highlights at least 6 players in the secondary who would normally be in the 2 deep for Cincinnati that may not participate. There's plenty of players in the defensive front 7 that may not show up. You look at
No,
Cincinnati
they're all out.
defensive.
None of them are on the depth chart. Like they're all out.
I mean, that's going to be a huge issue. And you look at the defense all season, they struggled with allowing explosive plays. We saw it rear its ugly head against Kansas and Iowa State early in the schedule, and it was such a problem during the 4-game losing streak to close out the regular season. 115th in explosive pass plays allowed, 122nd in havoc created. I would imagine Navy gets whatever they want here, running the triple option, using Teska in between the tackles and the dive. Heidenreich and Horvath will get theirs. But where Navy will really gouge these guys is in the play action pass. They'll lull these guys to sleep. I would expect at least 3 or 4 times where we see them take deep shots down the seam. They get their slot backs out into space better than about anybody. And Cincinnati's not going to be able to defend that. So you're going to see a ton of explosives from Navy. And when you look at the third and fourth quarter of this game, if Cincinnati's getting their ass kicked, who wants to really step in and fill the run lanes and tackle these guys for Navy? Cincinnati's not going to want to do it here. So I think pretty well a consensus. So I think Cincinnati's in big time trouble here.
And then without their star quarterback, and like on top of all that, Colin, do you like a derivative here? Navy team total over?
Yeah, and I think it's because of the unknown what's going to happen with the Cincinnati offense here. But what I do know is that the Cincinnati defense has been horrible all year, outside the top 115 in line yard stuff rate, pass rush, and havoc, right? And then that's with a healthy Godfather. And now he's not playing. Now they're missing all these pieces. So I know Navy's going to produce, and I know they're going to push, and I know they're going to score points. But here's my question. Are they going to score a little bit extra points with a little bit extra possessions because Cincinnati's offense is pretty fast? Their tempo is 24 seconds per play. Now you're going to have not Sorsby back there taking snaps. How quick is this 3 and out going to be? So Navy team total over for me because I see no resistance on that Cincinnati defensive side. Plus, if you're throwing garbage out there on the offensive side without Sorsby, how quickly is Navy going to get the ball back? This could snowball.
Yep. Death, taxes, service academies, and bowls. Let's move on to the Holiday Bowl, Friday, January 2nd, 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox between Arizona and SMU. Arizona 2.5-point favorite, total 52.5. This is a top 5 bowl for me, excluding college football playoffs. We got a chance that both teams are going to care, and there's not a lot of opt-outs. Now, Brett Brennan, head coach of Arizona, did come out and said there might be some opt-outs, and I was like, and then he said, I will not announce opt-outs before the bowl game It's a personal decision for the players, and I don't want to give SMU an indication of who may be sitting out. So we're not going to know. I just hope that I think that most are going to play. I really hope that Stooks and Smith. Arizona's pass defense is elite. Stooks is an elite NFL future corner. I hope that he plays and Smith or safety plays. Because if they do, this is a great matchup for Arizona because SMU can't run the ball. Arizona is an elite pass defense. And I think if you had to tell me right now who's the most underrated team in the country, I think it might be Arizona. And this team's going to be excited to be here. Motivation, excited to be here after what they went through last year. They peaked at the end of the season. This team seems like they're excited to be here, assuming there's not a lot of opt-outs. Meanwhile, SMU was on the doorstep of going to much to the chagrin of Collin, of going to the ACC championship game and then going back to the College Football Playoff where they were last year and then lost to Cal. Now they're going to play in the Holiday Bowl. Are they fully locked in here for bowl practices? Not sure. Give me Arizona. Love the Wildcats. Colin, you agree?
Yeah, 100% agree. 5 wins to end the season there. I mean, they were on fire in the month of November. And I think it's kind of funny though. This is actually your favorite team from 2 years ago and your most hated team from last year. So I think that's why you're kind of excited about this bowl just from name recognition alone. I
Yes.
think Kevin Jennings is in big trouble here. I mean, SMU can't create a methodical drive with him. They're 111th in creating quality drives. SMU relied on explosives to get into scoring territory, and it's just not going to happen against Arizona. They're 15th in defending pass explosives. SMU is 73rd in havoc allowed. I just picture Kevin Jennings hand shaking at Penn State in the playoff last year. Like I don't see a lot of good things happening for SMU on the offensive side of the ball because Arizona has been so good on defense. I hope their opt-outs don't come on that side of the ball, but it's
Yeah.
one of those things where I'm going to have to wait until about 90 minutes before we see who's on the field. Plus, not to mention their secondary and their linebacker group. I mean, this is a Wildcat defense that was top 30 in creating a contested catch. I need to have that. I need the Arizona defense that created 19 interceptions, which was fifth best in the nation. So if I have that defense, this is Arizona all the way.
Stooks and Smith, if you're listening, play. I want to watch you. The nation wants to watch you. Probably didn't get to see a lot of you. I mean, yeah, this Arizona team, I mean, look, they got so unlucky against BYU, of course. They lost in
Brutal
double
double
overtime.
overtime loss.
Brutal.
They had
There
a
was that
57
fumble.
post. Go ahead. I'm sorry, guys.
There was that like fluke fumble that would have ended the game, and then they lost in double overtime. They were up double digits.
Had
Uh,
an INT called back that would have
yeah,
ended it.
They had
Oh,
a
unbelievable.
they had a 57 post game, 57% post game win expectancy against Houston. Lost that game too.
Yeah, should easily could have won that game at Houston. So I mean, this team could have been an 11-win team pretty easily, and they were peaking down the stretch. Uh, Duck, you're looking at the total here. You have a eye for the under possibly.
I do, yeah. And this is a tricky one because we've got Brennan saying he's not going to announce who's going to participate and who's not going to. And this game is taking place on the day that the transfer portal opens up. So could be a little bit of goofy stuff that goes on
I
here.
mean,
But
SMU could have opt-outs too. There are guys that are potentially going pro that are big names, but so
if I were to bet on SMU here, I would want to know if the skill guys are playing. RJ Maryland, Hibner at tight end, Romello Brinson at receiver. I'd want to know if those guys are in here. SMU's been a bad bowl team over the last several years. These guys just haven't really found a way to show up in the postseason. They do have some guys that can play defensively, and I would assume that if once Arizona moves the ball into the red zone, there's a chance they could struggle at punching it in for six. SMU's red zone defense was exquisite this year. 31 scores in 44 attempts against them, but only 17 of those were touchdowns. They did really well at creating red zone takeaways, getting stopped on downs, forcing you into mistakes or field goal attempts. So the only other knock on Arizona is they did allow 30 sacks this season, and SMU has some dudes that can get after the quarterback. So if the sacks happen at the wrong time, maybe that creates punting situations, and you could call for a lower scoring game. That's what I would be more inclined to see here in this one.
Breeze, nothing for you in this game. Anything you want to add?
Brett Brennan, I loved you at San Jose State. You're doing a great job in the desert. You didn't come into an easy situation with Fish leaving for Washington, a lot of players transferring. Really, just give us the goddamn player availability report. You're not bigger than a minor bowl game, okay? These are exhibitions that are being basically floated by the gambling community. That's why anyone's watching these.
Yeah.
eat shit. Just give us the goddamn list of who's going to play. Like, this isn't a national championship. This isn't gamesmanship. It's not a personal decision. Just let us know who's going to play, even if it's 12 hours before the game. Just let us know so we have some idea of what the product's going to look like on the field.
All right, and then finally, the final non-playoff bowl game, Friday, January 2nd, 8 p.m. Eastern, ESPN. The Duke's Mayo Bowl between Wake Forest and Mississippi State. Mississippi State 3-point favorite, total 53 and a half. Wake Forest has some real absences here. Mississippi State, I assume, wants to be here. They accepted after all these other teams said no. Uh, there's a lot of question marks still. I mean, go check out the bowl opt-out tracker. I'll be updating it. But like Claiborne, Wake Forest stud running back, their stud defensive tackle, really underrated. Is going to get a lot of money from a Power Four team. He's not going to play. There's a couple other potential absences. So as of right now, I don't have anything. I know the Duck, too many questions for you. Calabrese is a pass. Colin loves Wake Forest. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, as long as Nick Anderson, Aiden Hall, as long as some of these other defensive names are still there, I think this is a complete mismatch. I mean, Mississippi State gets in as a 5-win team. I'm happy for them and everything, but Wake Forest has legitimately played great defense the entire year. So if we have everybody except for their stud defensive tackle in there, it should be good because the staple of Wake has been the defense, a top 10 stuff rate, a top 15 coverage unit per PFF. They're doing it in the front and they're doing it in the back of the defense. And the pass EPA has been the calling card for Blake Shapen. Don't know if he's going to play.
Chapin's out. It'll be
Kamario.
yeah.
Yeah, got to see him start his career. He had a big part of the Arkansas game. I mean, he could add an element into the ground, but this is an extremely inefficient offense, even when Kamario Taylor is playing. Mississippi State is 111th in havoc allowed. That's just not going to work against this Wake Forest defense, especially in tackles for loss. Mississippi State is dead last in the nation. I'm sorry, second to last. It's close. In tackles for loss allowed. Wake Forest is going to be in the backfield all day, just suffocating them. I'd keep an eye on the secondary. I am worried about Patterson and Anderson playing. If they don't miss tackles, they have been the backstop. The reason the EPA numbers are so high for this Wake Forest defense is because of those two safeties. So as long as they're playing, Mississippi State's offensive attack should go nowhere. The Deeks will figure it out on offense. They usually do. But I do like Wake Forest. I've already got down on them and plan to keep hitting it until I find out who's opting out for Wake.
Kamario Taylor, 2 rushing touchdowns. If you can get north of 5-1, you want to have some fun with this game. If their offense is going to be functional, it's going to run through that kid.
It's not going to be through the air. Yeah, I mean, that's probably what the offense is going to be is just scramble.
A lot of scrambling all around in this game from
Mhm.
both teams. Before we get out of here, as we do on all our bowl season previews, it's time for our DraftKings parlay. We'll each pick our favorite play from this episode from any of the 7 bowl games, throw it in a parlay over on DraftKings. Colin, I don't need you to say it again. We just
Yeah.
talked about it. You're starting with Wake. I
Mhm.
just recently talked about I'm going to throw Arizona money line in there. Duck, you're going to go with the Arizona total?
Yeah, we'll go with the total. We just recapped it here, but I think we'll see red zone defense step up here. I think we'll see some havoc, which will thwart drives, and we'll go 27-17 under the total.
And Calabrese, you're going with death, taxes, and Navy?
Navy -7. Similar situation last year. Oklahoma faded late in the season, a Power Four team. They end up losing outright as a favorite to this Navy squad. This Cincinnati team just horrific in November. All their star players are out. I think Navy wins this one by double digits.
All right, so Wake +3, SMU Arizona under 51 and a half, above that key of 51. Navy -7, Arizona money line plus 1073 at DraftKings. We'll drop a link in the podcast and YouTube description. We'll also tweet it out. Go use that link to instantly add that bet to your bet slip at DraftKings, and let's get it home. The crown is yours. So, as I said before, we are not done. We'll be back with another BBOC live show, by the way, on Wednesday morning, talking about these games, some updated thoughts, and then we'll have part 6 for the college football semifinals on Tuesday night, January 6th, and then part 7 for the Natty on Thursday night, the 15th. We'll also go live on Championship Monday. And if you want to tail any of the bets we discussed today, look for the quick slip link in the video and podcast description or visit actionnetwork.com/bet now. if you have a moment, you want to leave us a 5-star review if we've won you any money all year. We would really appreciate that. Make sure you subscribe, unsubscribe, tell a friend, tell an enemy. Not fully done yet, but just want to express my gratitude to you, all of you guys, our producers, and then most importantly, all of the listeners for another very enjoyable college football season. Let's close it out strong. Enjoy the games. Happy New Year. We'll catch y'all later. Cheers.
Peace out.